All right, we're back. Welcome, everybody. I don't even know what day we're on now. It is day whatever's on this title of this podcast. I think day four, possibly. So we're back today, going through Ibn al-Arabi, some more of his antics, I would say. Now, I would like to say, I've been reading a lot of what he does, and this novel or this encyclopedia that he wrote is 15,000 pages long from one of his works. So saying I've read a couple of chapters here and there is by no means I've read a lot of. I've read drops of water in the ocean that is this person. A couple of things I would like to comment on, and it's a legitimate criticism because it makes the writing very, very difficult. But the way Ibn Arabi writes is in these long proses, these long sentences, where if you were to think these thoughts and read them back to yourself, you would feel confused by the end of it. Because it's these long prosy sentences, like it doesn't follow any sort of structure. It's just a guy who has ideas who's putting them onto a page. I don't think they're bad ideas. They're very good ideas. They're just very hard to follow along. And I think the more you go through it, I thought I'd be like getting the hang of it, but I actually am not. I'm getting more and more confused throughout what he does. So there is that. Now, going through the mysteries of fasting, this whole writing that he has, the one we described a couple episodes ago. And so I came across a certain chapter, chapter 44, where it's the wisdom of the people of every country fasting by their sighting of the moon. So, it's quite it's quite a broad topic that he has, but there is some kind of nice nuggets I would like to share with you guys. So, as with a lot of this actual writing, I have found it is a lot of sort of like fiqh issues you could see, a lot of like jurisprudential issues where it talks about like if you are traveling, should I fast? Should you fast? The woman who's pregnant, the person who's breastfeeding, it has a lot of those little issues where he talks and he gives commentary on that. And his commentary is based on a lot of like, a lot of hadith, and his commentary is based on a lot of details that, throughout the past. And one of the first ones I saw that he actually comments on was I'll read the section out and we'll go through it. So, Muslim transmitted in his Sahih from Kuryab that al Fadl bint al Harith sent to him Muawiyah in Syria. He said, I arrived in Syria and dealt with what she needed. The new moon of Ramadan arrived when I was in Syria, and I saw the new moon on Friday night. Then I went to Medina at the end of the month, and Abdullah ibn Abbas asked me and then mentioned the new moon. He said, when did you see the new moon? I said, we saw it on Friday night. He said, did you see it? I said, yes. And the people saw it and fasted. And Muawiyah fasted. He said, we saw it Saturday night. We will continue to fast until complete 30 days or when we see it. I said, are you not content with Muawiyah seeing it and fasting it? He said, no. That is how the Messenger of God commanded us. So, Katie, really going into this kind of topic again, where was the one we talked about last episode, where we're saying, you know, neighboring countries, is there like a kind of like a scope? Is there like a field of which, you can kind of see it? And it seems that like neighboring countries almost like you are responsible for your country's boundary, however they were written or however they are drawn at the time, you fast on that. And it was, I don't think they were having a doubt on whether or not this person was lying or he was trustworthy or not. But I think at the time, it really just kind of clears up the issue of this is how the prophet did it. This is how we will continue to do it. It's not about whether I trust or don't trust. It is, we're trying to stick with the tradition there. And so that really clears up that kind of thought I had last episode. So the next section he has, which is chapter 44, section 1, he talks about God does not oblige anyone a single state. So this whole kind of section is very, very short. It's kind of like a paragraph almost. And it kind of talks about, you know, God has given you these laws, and you are responsible. Basically, real you have a big responsibility to yourself, but you know you are only responsible. You are only held responsible to the state you are and the capacity that you have. So everyone has like their own their own capacity, their own limit. You are judged based on what you are given. So someone who has maybe some sort of like learning disability or something like that, he is judged based on that limit, and it's a fairly known concept throughout a lot of how these things go, and everyone does have their own capacities and limits. So it does come, it does kind of make you think when there's certain people who are not fasting, and maybe you can get pass a judgment onto them or something like that. Each their own. Doesn't really, everyone does their own thing. We're all fasting for God and they, but it's just everyone is doing it to their own limit. You don't know that person's capacity. You don't know how much, whatever they are, whatever health issues they have or don't have. We don't know. So it is all based on everyone's capacity. And so, it's just always something to keep in your mind when you do see things that maybe are outside the norm of what we are dealing with day to day in Ramadan. So the next part is he comes, well, it's actually kind of a jump ahead in the paragraph. So he talks about on the night of the fast, it is lawful for you. So he kind of comes onto a section here, and it's a bit of like a fiqhi issue, but he talks about things that are prohibited during the day but are lawful for you during the night. And he kind of comes to this, it's kind of like one of these few situations in Islam where there is like a time dependence, or it's one of those situations where things are time dependent. So, eating always is halal except during Ramadan, where it is not permissible for you to eat during the day. And for example, like being intimate with your spouse or whatever, it is not permitted during the day, but it is permissible during the night. And it is the whole section kind of goes through things that are, it talks about like how fasting, or when you're in the state of fast, there is certain time you can do the things that you want to do, but it is within a much shorter time frame. And it does make sense. It does, it does kind of stick with the spirit of fasting, that you are restricting, all the pleasures of your life, really. You're trying to restrict a lot of things. You're trying to get, I mean, it is supposed to be difficult. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. So, when you are deadly thirsty, you can't just have that drink of water to have that instant gratification. The idea is there is a bit of stress involved with it. The next section, which also another good one, we have a quick coffee break. Cold, 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 cold. Is God knows that you have been betraying yourselves, and I think this is super, super relevant to a lot of people who maybe come up with like some excuses for not fasting. Now, obviously, I did just say we just cover across, like, we don't know everyone's situations, we don't judge, but I mean, there is no the only person you should be judging is yourself. The only person you should be looking at is really yourself. You look at kind of like what you do, and you can tell yourself whatever lies you have, and end of the day, God knows what's really in your heart, and obviously, I think you do too to some extent. I think that's the whole point of this section. And just like a bit of like anecdotal evidence for me, I was in Taraweeh a couple of nights ago, and I was praying, and I was not feeling that great, and I immediately felt like, yeah, I'm just gonna go in. I'm not gonna go today. I'm gonna like, probably just pray at home, or I'm not gonna pray tonight or whatever. And I really sat down and thought about it. I was like, man, I'm tired, but am I really at that point where like I can't go? And that's where it's like, am I really just betraying myself now, or what is it like? Is it the situation where I am being dishonest with myself? And it was, you know, you push yourself just that much. You can tell someone else like, oh, I'm not feeling it. I can call my mother and tell her, like, oh, I'm feeling quite tired, and she'll be like, yeah, of course, whatever. But the real person, you're betraying as yourself. And the whole point of this whole section that he has here is, God knows when you're actually betraying yourself. God knows all of those little details, knows what's in your heart of hearts. So It's more of just be honest with yourself, you know. Uh, if you're gonna do something that is, outside of what you think is right, uh, do you have that like cognitive dissonance that you're saying like, oh no, I am tired and I can't, or are you being like truly honest with yourself? Because if people were truly honest with themselves, they would and didn't give themselves those excuses. I do not think, in general, most people would actually carry out doing this, the wrongdoing or the sin or whatever it is. I don't think that is much of the case. I do think people will say, yeah, well, I think a lot of cases you'll see nowadays is people will say, yeah, like I go out to I go out to wherever, I drink, I do whatever, all this stuff, you know. And it's because like, yeah, it's because, like it's not that bad. And I read somewhere and it's like they give themselves all these excuses, these things which, are they even convinced with all that? Are they even convinced with these kind of excuses that they have sold themselves? And that's kind of the $1 million question there. It's like, are you betraying, are you really able to lie to yourself that much? Or is it just on the surface I'm saying that and you're not really digging past yourself on that? And I think that's really the point here. You got to dig past your preconceived notion of belief there. You got to peel back more than one layer because it's very, very easy to say on the surface, oh, I can't do anything. And it's not just applicable to this Ramadan, it's applicable to any like section of your life. Oh, yeah, I can't lose that weight. I can't do this. I can't stop eating. I can't ever eat chocolate. And it's just, you're ultimately betraying yourself because you're never getting past that first layer of yourself, you know? So there is kind of, that's what I kind of got from that section there. Another really, really nice section he has is every human limb seeks the fast particular to itself. And it's a really weird concept that is like almost like, sorry, it's a very strange concept that you read it, every limb is particular to itself. So it's almost as if every limb I have is its own sentient thinking thing. And every part of me has its own fast. And it is to some extent true, you know. When when I'm fasting, I try not to he talks about like your hand, tongue, belly, feet, everything like that, genitals, hearing, sight, all that kind of stuff. And it's, you got to take it a step back and what are we really fasting from and take it. I mean, this very, very basically, your sight is fasting. So, when you're on YouTube, are you watching things that are maybe not that appropriate for Ramadan? You have that sight. Hearing things, so like, are you driving around? Are you listening to really, really, uh, graphic gangster rap or whatever it is? I think everyone, I don't think there's a single Muslim out there who, has never heard that kind of stuff. But is it really appropriate for Ramadan? So there is that kind of like layer of fasting. Your tongue. I mean, are you talking to your friends in a way that is like that is harsh and aggressive? Are you swearing? Are you using all sorts of things? Again, there is that aspect of fast. So you are blocking every single aspect of your fast with every single limb of your body. So it's not just I'm not eating, I'm not drinking. I'm restraining. Every part of me has its own battle. Every part of me has its own fast that needs to be, maintained. So I did quite like that sentence. And again, it's a very you can kind of see how when you go into so much detail of every single aspect of this, every detail is just so in depth, so well covered, so well versed, So it is, you know, when you go into all this detail, you can really just start diving deep, deep into certain points. So there is that. And then the rest of the chapter is kind of a lot of repeaty stuff I found, a lot of like fiqhi things. You should complete the number, how much, going back to the number of days you're fasting. And if you want, anyone who can fast should fast. A lot of that stuff kind of comes through. It's a very, very much repeated topic throughout his whole writing here is actually the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was sent down. So this was a very significant point for Ibn Arabi in this text, It is a very significant event, albeit, but he does go through it very, very extensively, and he does just rewrite the same sentence section over and over again throughout the chapters. Uh, Obviously, with his own twist relating to that particular chapter, but it is a very, very key element of this writing that he has. Uh, so yeah. Lastly, the kind of sentence that one more section that he has here is so God only speaks to you by you. And it took me a while to kind of really wrap my head around this section today, or this sub chapter, you could say. And I didn't really understand what he meant by it, but from what I understand, or what my interpretation of it is, that fasting and any of these times where you are connecting with God, you are connecting with God on sort of your own. God obviously knows how to connect to you, and it is through your own terms. So I think it's really very much everyone has their own kind of individualized relationship with God, or that feeling that they have from God. I think all of this kind of stuff is a mix of love, fear, and respect, or all of those things kind of put together, and everyone feels based, on their own sort of. Imagine it's like some dials. Everyone feels on a certain dial of what they are. Everyone experiences God, very, very individually. So some people would relate to God very much so by having a lot of fear. And I think, most people have mostly fear, but you'll also have, a lot of love. You'll also have a lot of respect and admiration for, all that we have been given. So, there is, I think everyone has that, or let's rephrase that. This particular section really kind of dives in and says, well, everyone has their own sort of relationship. Everyone has their own sort of feeling with God, and this is just a representation of that. This is how he describes it. So yeah, that is us for today. Thank you very much. I know it's a little bit all over the place, but that's just the way going through Ibn Arabi's work is. It is just very much all over the place. It's amazing. Even when printing these pages, it even prints in the style of Ibn Arabi. The pages don't even come out consecutively. I don't know why, but it's just one of those weird things. It's all very, very weird, very, very strange. But I'm no expert on this, and I think that should be like a little note today. I'm no expert on any of this stuff. I'm just learning this as I am describing it to you. So you don't take what I tell you if I do give any sort of or I don't actually give any sort of directive or judgment or anything like that. This is just me learning and sharing that experience with you. So I'm no scholar, I'm no nothing. So learn from actual people, not just idiots with podcasts. All right. Peace out.